So this is the Goodnight Moon episode. Shout out to my cousin Eileen and Richard who first suggested it. I don't like this book. I didn't grow up with it, but I understand how easy it is to be brainwashed. Reviewers have described the book as less a story than an incantation. I think a lot of people believe this book can really make your kids fall asleep, and surely that was instrumental to its success. That's Don Coscarelli's Beastmaster from 1982. This was his first big-budget movie after shooting Phantasm. It's about a warrior that can communicate with animals. It's really fun to see this Mr. Universe type being saved by like 2 baby ferrets. Goodnight Moon was published in 1947 and has sold 48 million copies. The character designs of the grandma bunny and the little boy bunny was a last-minute alteration because the author, Margaret, couldn't draw humans as well. Another last-minute change was taking the udders off the cow that's jumping over the moon to make it less offensive. There's a painting of a rabbit fly fishing, and if you look closely, the rabbit is catching a little bunny out of the river. There's like a carrot on the fishing line, and the bunny is clearly jumping out of the river. It's like, what the hell does that mean? This is my co-host, Henry. It's also my son. What are you looking at? Anyway, we're back. Someone had an interesting theory about the painting of the 2 bears sitting across from a third bear, that they're having like a couples therapy session, and that's why they look so unhappy. By Margaret Wise Brown. Pictures by Clement. There's a weird animated version of the story available on YouTube that's narrated by Susan Sarandon. You can also watch Neil deGrasse Tyson having a dream that Levar Burton reads Goodnight Moon to him. I'll leave the link on YouTube if you want to watch it. It's pretty cute. And the little bunny boy is going to bed and he says goodnight to everything in the room. And then he says goodnight to the moon. My buddy Michael Hubner believes that the reason that the grandma is gone at the end is because the cats ate her. Regardless if that's true or not, I think the bunny is surely doomed because there's no screen over that fireplace. And let me tell you something. No cat is going to warn you about an out-of-control log fire. They don't give a shit about us. Probably just hop out the window to the nearest tree and start grooming themselves while the bunny burned alive. In the green room, there was a telephone and a red balloon and a picture of the cow jumping over the moon. And there were 3 little bears. There's an interesting theory that the little bunny is sleeping in his mother's bed, which would explain the bedside telephone, drying laundry, and tiger skin rug. But, I mean, there's still the dollhouse and a bunch of his toys, so I don't know if that sticks. And a quiet old lady who was whispering, hush. A word about the author. Margaret had relationships with both men and women, but near the end of her life, she fell in love with a guy named James Stillman Rockefeller Jr., a handsome great-nephew of J.D. Rockefeller. They were engaged, and for their honeymoon, the couple planned to sail around the world. Before they could begin their grand adventure, Margaret had to take a business trip to France, where she developed appendicitis. Her emergency surgery was successful, but on the day she was scheduled for release, a nurse asked her how she felt. "Grand," Margaret declared, kicking up her feet and dislodging a blood clot in her leg, which traveled to her brain and killed her within hours. She was 42 years old. So if you're in recovery and someone asks you how you're doing, just give a little thumbs up or blink twice. That's really sad. The color palette is weird and loud. The house looks like, this room looks like a crime scene. It's just missing the chalk outlines of the body. So the royalties for Goodnight Moon went to this neighbor's kid that Margaret liked, this kid named Albert. And the book didn't make a lot of money at first, but it's eventually became a phenomenon, and this teenager was suddenly earning hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And the tragedy is that he just sort of squandered millions and got into all this trouble. This is like a roller coaster life. I mean, we're talking murderous fistfights, theft, sequence of broken homes, domestic violence, lost custody of children, vagrancy, debt, drug abuse, all kinds of arrests. You would think after making hundreds of thousands of dollars every year, he would figure it out, but apparently he never did. What is mush, anyway? Is that just like shitty oatmeal? Is it the same thing as gruel? They just had horrible meals back then. Like, we have some leftover mush and a glass full of grape nuts. All right, gonna clock in at the asbestos factory. Now I'm gonna read some one-star reviews. Jessica says, why do people like this book? Finding the little mouse on each page is fun, but other than that, it's just a dumb book. There's a lame attempt to rhyme, sometimes. There's no rhythm. I don't get it. Here's another one-star review from Michael. I came across this classic today, and well, where do I begin? The back cover advises that this is the perfect first book to share with a child. My family agreed, so I had to read this inane story every night to my son until I was able to locate significantly better board books. That is, until I made it to the local bookshop and grabbed any and everything that wasn't Goodnight Moon. 10 years later, my son disdains books. And upon rediscovering this, I now know why. Now I understand why the cover doesn't specify that you should share this with your child. My son finally slept through the night once I switched to not Goodnight Moon. Let me just pinpoint one aspect that's bothered me for years. You cannot rhyme moon with moon and be granted classic status. I'm sorry, no dice. No third-rate illiterate rapper would get away with this. Why does Brown? All I can guess is that, written shortly after the Second World War, the author composed this under the duress of shell shock. Is that the explanation? Any other logic eludes me. Perhaps it is telling that the one object the baby bunny neglects to acknowledge is the copy of Goodnight Moon sitting on the nightstand. And finally, we have Eugene, who also rates it 1 star. After reading this book 387 times, I've decided it's crap. It's no I Am a Bunny, that's for damn sure. I agree, Eugene. I Am a Bunny is a classic. There's a parody of this book called Goodnight iPad. The New York Public Library didn't have a copy of Goodnight Moon for 25 years because of a woman named Anne Carroll Moore who didn't like Margaret's work. Moore was appointed the New York Public Library's first superintendent of work with children. So basically she was like the MPAA of library content. She was like this librarian Nazi. All right, guys, thanks for listening.